This is Delhi. Please stand by for our next program.
This is All India Radio. You will now hear comments from the press. The Business Line in its editorial titled Disastrous Dividend writes, in a dubious first, India is set to become the most populous nation in 2027, surpassing China, according to an estimation by the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. India's population has been growing at a much faster rate than China's, with the poorer regions contributing the most to that growth. India's population has ballooned from 555.2 million in 1970 to 1,366.4 million now, for 146% expansion. In comparison, China's population grew at about half that pace, 73%, from 827.6 million to 1,433.7 million during the same period, largely on account of undemocratic decisions such as one-child policy. China saw its total fertility rate, which is average number of children per woman, decline from 6.3 in 1965 to 70 to 5.41 in 1970 to 75 after the two-child policy was introduced, and fell further after the one-child policy was implemented. The country's fertility rate is currently at 1.69. In contrast, in India, the total fertility rate declined from 5.7 in 1965 to 70 to 4.85 in 1970 to 75, the initial years of the Hum Do Hamare Do population control campaign. India's fertility rate is currently at about 2.24. With wide variations across states, it stands at 1.6 in Tamil Nadu and West Bengal, and at 3.3 in Bihar and 3.1 in Uttar Pradesh. The fertility rate in the rural areas is much higher than in the urban areas. The silver lining here is that the median age of India's population will be 28.43 years in 2020 compared to 38.4 years in China. The Tribune, in its editorial titled Kullu Tragedy, says as many as 44 lives were snuffed out when an overloaded bus rolled down a nala in Himachal Pradesh's Kullu district on Thursday. The mishap comes barely 2 months after 12 persons were killed when a bus on its way from Pathankot to Dalhousie had fallen into a gorge near the Naini Khud area in Chamba district. In September last year, about 60 persons had died after an overcrowded roadways bus plunged into a ravine near Shanivarapet village in Telangana. At least 30 passengers were drowned when a speeding private bus had plunged into a canal in Karnataka's Mandya district in November 2018. Every major bus mishap hits the headlines, triggering a public outrage for a day or two before the dust inevitably settles. Inquiries are conducted, families of the victims receive compensation, a couple of officials are suspended for dereliction of duty, but on the whole, things remain the same on the ground. Overloading, speeding and driver fatigue are identified as the key reasons for bus accidents, but little is done to prevent their recurrence. Though human error is the prime culprit, more often than not, the need for safer road infrastructure, proper signage for motorists, and a robust public transport system can't be overemphasized. Strict law enforcement and zero tolerance to negligence also have to be ensured at all costs. The Asian Age, in its editorial titled India's Water Crisis Now Getting Worse and Worse, writes, the water crisis across India is assuming humongous proportions as the southwest monsoon plays truant on the west coast. India's sixth largest city, Chennai, was staring down the barrel as it got its first rainfall after 196 days on Thursday, but barely sufficient to wet the ground and far from slaking the thirst of a city used to consuming around 800 million litres daily. Chennai is emblematic of India's existing water management problem rather than water shortage, but that too isn't far off. A Niti Aayog report claims India has only 4% of Earth's free water, while it hosts 15% of the world's 7 billion plus population. While all of India is yet to get access to basic water, most urban centers depend on supply by water tankers that are exploiting the crisis to make unconscionable profits for their owners, many of whom being leaders. India's tragedy of India isn't so much the diminishing rainfall in the past few years, but the cycles of drought that seem to follow the rain. We have long lost touch with nature, whose bounty was tapped in ancient India via lake and pond management and small check dams. What is required is a gigantic imagination to make it all happen, from making crucial changes to agricultural practices that use up about 80% of national water resources, water management at the village level, intending to water bodies, and vigilance to stop the indiscriminate exploiting